Hello there and welcome to Kakaaki, the African Voice on Africa Independent Television, AIT. My name is Kunle Adewale, and of course it's great to be with you this Thursday morning. It's the 6th day of May 2026, and glad to be here again. Now, let's give you what we have on our plate this morning, talking about our conversations. Nigeria's Inspector General of Police earlier this week, that's talking about Mr. Olatunji Disu, ordered a comprehensive audit of arms, ammunition, and other weaponry across all police formations in the country in a renewed effort to curb the proliferation of illegal weapons and strengthen internal accountability within the force. Speaking during a meeting in Abuja with Deputy Inspectors General of Police, Assistant Inspectors General of Police, and other strategic police managers, Disu said the directive is aimed at ensuring accurate inventory management, preventing diversion or misuse of firearms, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. According to him, the directive is to ensure accurate inventory management, preventing diversion or misuse of firearms, and of course overall and operational efficiency management, and it's expected also to help identify gaps in armament control and reinforce security measures nationwide. Disu used the opportunity to urge the police chiefs to work closely with traditional rulers, religious leaders, market associations, youth groups, women groups, and transport unions in order to effectively police their areas of responsibility. He also instructed them to make their contact details available to community leaders within their respective states to improve intelligence gathering and operational response. He assured Nigerians that the alleged extrajudicial killing of an unarmed suspect by an assistant superintendent of police in Delta State will not be swept under the carpet, stressing that accountability will be pursued to its full and logical conclusion. So on Kakaaki, the African Voice this morning, we'll be looking at the Inspector General's Weapons Control Order, what it is likely to achieve and why it has taken so long to have a comprehensive arms and ammunition audit. We'll also focus on the IG's call on its meant to improve on traditional information gathering by working with traditional leaders and other community leaders. Security strategist and analyst Dr. David Okoro will be joining us to do this. Now let's take you to Lagos State, where an interesting development is coming out in an attempt to enhance the universal healthcare coverage, as the state government announced the intensified enforcement of an executive order mandating all residents to enroll for health insurance. Under the new enforcement framework that promotes flexible payment plans, residents who do not have evidence of registration in the social health insurance scheme may be denied access to public services like vehicle and other license renewals, as well as school enrollments, to mention a few. The permanent secretary at the Lagos State Health Management Agency, Emmanuela Zamba, told newsmen that it's a carrot and stick enforcement, as there are also incentives for residents who comply with the order. She said the new initiative aligns with the state government's commitment to residents who cannot afford out-of-pocket payment for their health care services, amid concerns about the number of lives needlessly lost as a result of the inability to pay for health care. So, how much success is possible from such an enforcement, bearing in mind that even the most flexible of payment plans may not be affordable to some? Is the denial of access to basic services the ideal form of sanctions for non-compliance? Is this a model that other states should follow? These are some of the questions we shall put to the Permanent Secretary of the Lagos State Health Management Agency, Emmanuel Azamba, when she joins us later on the program. Or talking about joining us on the program, you are part of the program and you can just contribute your bit by sending your views and comments to all our social media handles on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. That's at Africa Independent TV, so that you can stay up to date with the latest news from around the world. All right, for now, we'll take you to the news desk to bring you the Kakaaki World News. Stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. This is the World News on Kakaaki, the African Voice. You are welcome. We start from Iran, where the President Masoud Pezeshkian says his country is ready for dialogue within the framework of international law, but will not acquiesce to force. Pezeshkian made the remarks in a phone call with Iraqi Prime Minister-designate Ali al-Zaidi on Wednesday. The Iranian president said the problem is that on the one hand, the United States is pursuing a policy of maximum pressure against the country, and on the other hand, it expects Iran to come to the negotiating table and ultimately surrender to its unilateral demands. He noted that Iran fundamentally does not consider war and insecurity to be favorable options, stressing that Iran must not deprive itself of nuclear technology. Pezeshkian said the United States speaks in a way as if Iran must not have a nuclear industry and imposes extra pressure on the country by putting forward excessive demands. The U.S. media reported on Wednesday that the United States and Iran are close to agreeing a one-page memo to end their war, though Tehran pushed back and said it is still reviewing the U.S. proposal and will convey a response via Pakistan. The White House is thought to believe it is nearing an agreement with Iran on a one-page memorandum of understanding to end the war and set a framework for more detailed nuclear negotiations, according to Axios, citing two U.S. officials. The report says a potential deal will involve Iran committing to a moratorium on nuclear enrichment and the United States agreeing to lift sanctions, with both sides lifting restrictions on transit through the Strait of Hormuz. It said the duration of the moratorium on uranium enrichment remains under negotiation, with estimates ranging from 12 to 15 years. Axios reported that Iran initially proposed a 5-year suspension, while the United States demanded 20. And Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammad Ishaq Dar says efforts are ongoing to help end the conflict between the United States and Iran. Addressing ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, Dar said Pakistan has been engaging both sides to secure a ceasefire and promote dialogue. Said the goal is to persuade both sides to reach a peace agreement, something the region and the world need, expressing hope that ongoing consultations, supported by multiple countries, will help resolve the conflict in a win-win manner. A ceasefire took effect on April 8, followed by talks between Iranian and U.S. delegations in Islamabad that failed to produce a deal. China says it will resolutely protect the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese nationals and businesses from improper extraterritorial application of foreign laws and measures. Spokesperson from the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Lin Jian, said this at a press conference in Beijing on Wednesday in response to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's latest remarks on a ban issued by China's Minister of Commerce to prohibit any recognition, enforcement, or compliance with U.S. sanctions imposed on 5 Chinese companies on the grounds of their alleged involvement in Iranian petroleum transactions. Lin said the ban is a lawful measure to block improper extraterritorial application of U.S. laws and measures. According to the Minister of Commerce, the sanctions that the U.S. has imposed on these Chinese companies since 2025 improperly prohibit or restrict normal economic and trade activities between Chinese companies and third countries, as well as their citizens, legal persons, or other organizations in violation of international law and basic norms of international relations. Meanwhile, China's top political advisor Wang Huning met with visiting Bangladeshi Foreign Minister Khalilur Rahman in Beijing on Wednesday. Wang, a member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China Central Committee and chairman of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, recalled Chinese President Xi Jinping's historic state visit to Bangladesh in 2016, which pointed out the direction for the development of China-Bangladesh relations. Wang said China will continue to develop friendly relations with Bangladesh on the basis of the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, enhancing high-level exchanges between the two countries, remain firm in mutual support, deepen cooperation in various fields, and promote in-depth and substantive development of the China-Bangladesh Comprehensive Strategic Cooperative Partnership, so as to better benefit people of both countries. A China-U.S. Economic and Trade Matchmaking Conference held in New York brought U.S. companies together with enterprises from northwest China's Shanxi province to explore new opportunities for cooperation. The event featured industry promotion, product exchange, direct business negotiations, and enterprise achievement displays, all centered on Shanxi's advantageous industries. Shanxi has always been open to in-depth exchanges and cooperation and hopes to generate more outcomes through the event, according to an official of the Provincial People's Congress. At the event, U.S. business representatives attended the event noted that China is an important supply chain partner, and strengthening direct communication between enterprises on both sides can help promote smoother trade cooperation. Crowds of music fans have been praised for their unified response after a medical emergency unfolded during a music festival in central China's Hubei province, with some 20,000 revelers quickly parting to create a pathway for medics to transport a collapsed man to a waiting ambulance. The heartwarming moment occurred on the streets of Jingzhou City, where a large number of people had gathered for a performance when one of the attendees reportedly took unwell and fainted. When the alarm was raised that the man was in need of medical assistance, the attentive crowd allowed emergency responders to come through and perform immediate first aid treatment on site before a stretcher was brought to transport the man to a waiting ambulance. Now, a recent survey released by the German Chamber of Commerce and Industry has revealed that escalating tensions in the Middle East have significantly dampened the overseas business outlook for German companies, shifting export expectation from modest growth to stagnation. The survey, which polled more than 4,500 German enterprises, found that nearly one-third of respondents believe the ongoing Middle East conflict has laid bare the inherent fragility of global supply chains, with most expecting a further tightening of economic conditions in relevant markets. Regarding business sentiment, the survey showed a marked decline in confidence. The proportion of companies expecting economic conditions to deteriorate has risen from 24% before the conflict to 32%, indicating heightened corporate concern over the external environment. Nigeria's House of Representatives has called on telecommunication companies operating in the country to improve the quality of their services following widespread complaints from Nigerians over poor connectivity, high tariffs, and inadequate customer support. The resolution followed a motion of urgent public importance by Amadu Jaha, representing Chibok Damboa Goza Federal Constituency of Borno State.
Colleagues, that telecommunication services have become a critical part of everyday life of Nigerians, lamenting that despite the rising cost of data and voice calls, service quality remains below expectations.
Poor network connectivity is a major issue. Subscribers frequently experience drop calls, slow internet speeds, and difficulties in sending messages. This affects both personal communications and business operations, leading to frustrations and financial losses.
The lawmaker argued that unreliable network delay emergency responses during security, medical crisis, fire and road accidents, asking telecom operators to invest in modern infrastructure.
The House noted that high cost of data and call tariffs does not match the quality of services delivered. Nigerians often pay significant amount for data bundles that are quickly exhausted due to unstable connections and network interruptions.
The House, in another motion, called for urgent safety measures to prevent recurring road accidents in Damagu town in Yobe State.
Secondly, mandate the Federal Ministry of Works once again to urgently install speed breakers and appropriate road signages in Damagum town and other identified high-risk areas along the road, such as Genzarma town and Gabatasha. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, direct the Federal Road Safety Corps to intensify monitoring, enforcement of speed limits, and public awareness campaigns in the affected areas.
The House mandated relevant committees to ensure compliance with its resolutions. Ogianave Udwimo, EIT News Abuja.
The Federal High Court, sitting in Lagos, has issued an interim order preventing the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, from enforcing its recent directive aimed at penalizing broadcast stations and presenters over alleged breaches such as expressing opinions on facts, intimidating guests, or failing to maintain neutrality. The order was granted on Monday by Justice Daniel Osiago after hearing an ex parte application filed by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, alongside the Nigerian Guild of Editors, NGE. The legal action challenges the NBC's reliance on certain provisions of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code, which SERAP and NGE argue are vague, excessive, and inconsistent with constitutional protections. According to the groups, the Commission's directive amounts to an unlawful attempt to regulate editorial judgment and suppress legitimate media expression. In their suit, the organizations asked the court to determine whether the contested provisions violate Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which guarantees freedom of expression as well as Nigeria's obligations under international human rights instruments. Justice Osiago, in his ruling, directed the NBC, its representatives and affiliated parties to refrain from imposing fines, sanctions or penalties on media organizations based on the disputed sections of the 6th edition of the Broadcasting Code until the substantive matter is heard and decided. The court scheduled June 1, 2026 for the hearing of the motion on notice. The National Working Committee of the ruling All Progressives Congress APC has waived the screening requirements for President Bola Tinubu ahead of the primary election. The party therefore deemed him screened in accordance with the constitution of the party for the purpose of participation in the upcoming primary election. Rising from its 188th meeting on Wednesday, the NWC said the decision was made pursuant to the powers conferred on it under Article 13.4, 13 and 14 of the Constitution of the APC to organize and supervise the party's primaries and, in special circumstances, grant waivers in the best interest of the party. According to a statement by the National Publicity Secretary of the party, Felix Morka, the NWC noted that the president has received overwhelming endorsement and votes of confidence from critical stakeholders of the party, including the Progressive Governors Forum, PGF, the leadership and members of the National Assembly and other organs of the party at the APC National Summit 22-20. The Nigerian biannual training seminar in Zaria.
The training aimed at operational effectiveness of personnel in law enforcement within the Nigerian Army, with the theme improving the effectiveness of Army Corps of Military Police personnel. The seminar is designed to equip participants with the knowledge and skills required for modern military policing. Major General Eregbulu reaffirmed the Corps' commitment to upholding discipline and strengthening its role in law enforcement within the Nigerian Army.
The essence is to ensure that the rights of every citizen is respected. By virtue of the Constitution, we are not supposed to have civilians detained in our facility. So they are reminded that once a civilian is arrested, after doing the due diligence of investigating, under 24 hours, you must hand over that civilian to the agency that's in charge.
He also emphasized the need for responsible use of social media among personnel.
Our soldiers have no business being in social media. When they go against the Social Media Act, the First Social Media Act, they are punished. So it behoves on the commanders and officer commandings to go back to their various formations and reiterate the consequences of the abuse of social media.
The Army says the training will contribute to improve discipline and effectiveness across its formations. Abimaja Moses, AIT News, Kaduna.
The first 1,000 days of a child's life are a make-or-break window for human development. The UNICEF is raising the alarm, warning that without targeted nutritional and medical support during this period, infants face permanent risks of stunting and malnutrition.
Leads and policymakers from Benue and Enugu states are gathered here in Anambra State for a 2-day strategic planning session. The goal is to harmonize efforts in protecting pregnant women and newborns. UNICEF's Chief of Field Office in Enugu, Juliet Chiluwe, emphasized that these first 1,000 days dictate a child's lifelong health, brain power, and future earning potential.
The 1,000 days of children is a program that holistically looks at how we support the women and children from the time of conception of a mother to the time the child is born.
We are honored and we are happy that Benue State has been chosen, and the state government has pledged its support entirely to making sure that this 1,000-day nutrition initiative succeeds in our state.
We're also partnering with the Ministry of Poverty and Human Capital Development to ensure that we empower our women so that they are able to take charge of their finances.
Nigeria currently holds the grim title of having the world's second highest number of stunted children. And for these stakeholders, unless the government creates a truly enabling environment for nursing mothers, the nation risks losing its greatest asset, its children.
As climate change continues to disrupt livelihoods and ecosystems across the globe, experts are warning that environmental shocks are increasingly intersecting with insecurity and conflict. In Nigeria's capital, Abuja, policymakers and climate specialists from across Africa are exploring ways to ensure that efforts to adapt to climate change also contribute to peace and stability. Our climate correspondent, Nkoli Omodu, has the report.
The 3-day peer learning forum on the National Adaptation Plan process in conflict-affected countries brought together representatives from Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Liberia, Mali, Somalia, and South Sudan. Climate-induced pressures, such as extreme weather, Resource scarcity and displacement are intensifying tensions in many fragile regions.
Through peer learning and through discussions across governments, we can see what's working, what's not working, and maybe make adjustments to ensure that going forward, we can ensure that, again, climate change adaptation really does contribute to and enhance peace-building outcomes.
Nigeria, a party to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, has made commitments under its nationally determined contributions to cut greenhouse gas emissions by up to 47% with international support.
That is why this peer learning platform is so important. It allows us to move beyond theory into practice, to listen to another's experiences, and to co-create solutions that are grounded in reality and tailored to our unique contexts.
You have to be informed. That's important. So when you're informed, then whatever the government is doing can now make sense. For the government of the day, policies have been put in place.
The Peer Learning Forum allows countries facing similar challenges to share experiences and practical solutions. Nkoli Omodu, AIT News, Abuja.
That's the world news on Kakaaki, the African Voice. Thank you for staying with us. We have more reports for you on Kakaaki Business.
Hello and welcome to Kakaaki Business. We start with the reaction of the global oil markets to the de-escalation in the Middle East. Global oil prices dropped sharply as markets reacted to signs of de-escalation between the United States and Iran. Brent crude and U.S. futures fell by more than 70% after experts indicated both countries were moving closer to possible agreements. The decline follows signals from Washington, where President Donald Trump paused efforts around the Strait of Hormuz, citing progress in ongoing engagement. The move helped ease fears of supply disruption in one of the world's most critical oil routes. Despite the drop in crude prices, the impact has yet to reflect at the consumer level. In the United States, fuel price remained elevated, with gasoline averaging about $4.5 per gallon, highlighting the lag between global price movement and retail adjustments. Meanwhile, global financial markets responded positively. U.S. stocks are set to open higher, while the European and Asian market posted gains, driven by optimism that reduced geopolitical tension, could stabilize energy markets and support global growth. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is preparing for higher-level talks with U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, with a focus on tariff and economic cooperation between both countries. Brazil's finance minister says the engagement is expected to address trade concerns, including previous U.S. tariff on Brazil goods and ongoing scrutiny of Brazil's economic policies. Key areas of discussion will include Brazil's instant payment system, ethanol market access, and environmental concerns. The European Union is facing challenges in concluding a trade agreement with the United States and renewed tariff threats targeting automotive sector. President Donald Trump has warned of increasing tariffs on European cars and trucks, raising pressures on EU leaders to accelerate negotiations and avoid potential trade disruptions. However, divisions persist within the EU, with lawmakers pushing for stronger safeguards to ensure compliance from the US, while member states remain cautious about adding strict conditions. In Africa, Kenya's private sector activities declined for second consecutive month, reflecting growing pressures from rising fuel prices and weakened consumer demand. The Stanbic Bank Purchasing Manager Index remained below the 50-point growth threshold, indicating contraction, although the pace of decline slowed slightly compared to the previous months. Business across key sectors, including retail, agriculture, and service, reported increased operating costs, largely driven by higher transport expenses and supply chain disruptions. Analysts warn that continued global uncertainties, particularly linked to energy markets, could weigh further on economic recovery, despite moderate growth projection for the year ahead. Ghana's inflation rate rose slightly in April, marking its first increase since late 2024 and signaling emerging price pressure within the economy. The uptick was driven largely by higher costs in services, including transport, education, and hospitality, even as food inflation shows signs of moderation. Officials say while inflation remains relatively low, global shocks and regional disruptions are beginning to influence domestic price and levels, particularly in fuel-related costs. The development comes as Ghana continues its recovery from one of its most challenging economic periods in recent history. Economists say maintaining stability will depend on managing external risk while sustaining policy measures that support growth and consumer confidence. In Egypt, it recorded a slight easing in inflation in April, offering measure of relief after months of rising prices driven by global energy shocks. Data shows urban inflation declined marginally, although underlying pressures remain due to higher electricity tariff, currency weakness, and increased commodity prices. Food prices continue to play a significant role, with year-on-year increase reflecting sustained cost pressures across essential goods. At the same time, business activity in the non-oil sector weakened further, with declining output and reduced new orders pointing to softer economic momentum. Analysts cautions that while inflation has moderated, risks remain elevated, particularly in energy costs, and exchange rate pressure persists. In Nigeria, Access Holding has announced plans to reduce its stake in foreign subsidiary following a new directive from the Central Bank of Nigeria. The regulations limit Nigerian bank investments in overseas operations to 10% of shareholders' funds, prompting the group to restructure parts of its international portfolio. Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, has announced plans for a 20,000 megawatts power project aimed at transforming Nigeria's energy landscape. The project represents a significant expansion beyond its existing investment in oil refining, cement and fertilizer production. Dangote says the move is driven by strong cash flows and a broader vision to address Africa's critical infrastructure gaps, particularly in energy supply. If delivered, the project could more than double Nigeria's current effective electricity capacity, offering a major boost to industrial growth and economic development. Industry observers say large-scale private sector investment like this will be key to unlocking sustainable growth across the continent. And lastly, as global economic power continues to shift, stakeholders are calling for Africa to reposition from a passive route taker to an active player in shaping the system that drives trade, investment, and growth. The conversation took center stage in Abuja, where policymakers, senior government officials, and private sector leaders are in a closed-door strategic session with focus on economic realignment, institutional reform, and long-term competitiveness. In a world where global decisions are increasingly shaped behind closed doors, Africa is being challenged to move from the margins to the center of power. Unlike traditional forums where speeches dominate and applause follows, these closed-door sessions bring together participants from across the continent, including Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Liberia, among others, to engage in rigorous solution-driven dialogue on geopolitics, economic realignment, institutional reform, and energy independence.
They are also bringing their experiences all these years. They are also looking at how things haven't worked so well. So it's what the common denominator is the commitment to seeing a better Africa, where lives can be better, where our young people, an Africa where our young people were willing to live in and not run away. An Africa where life expectancy can be higher. An Africa where the governments function, where the institutions can be trusted. Many people say it is not possible, but it is possible.
What can we do better as we evaluate programs, successes and failures? And those areas we can do better is how do we strengthen governance? How do we strengthen accountability? How do we hold leaders accountable in our society?
At the heart of the conversation is a critical question. What must Africa control, align, or even forgo now to avoid remaining a passive route taker in an emerging global order?
Capital mobilization, both domestically and internationally. And we are looking at what is going on between the capital that is available, which we do have in Africa, and why is it not translating to growth in the enterprise? This is a major problem because Africa has a lot of opportunities.
Africa has about 1.8 trillion naira pension funds, sitting there. Of course, the case of Nigeria. Nigeria pension fund assets, nearly 30 trillion naira now. In other countries in Africa, you have pension funds sitting there, but these pension funds are not really being channeled to areas that can produce. For Africa, many of them, of course, for safety reasons, are used to buy government, securities.
On housing deficit, real estate developer Maes China believes African challenges can be addressed through indigenous solutions backed by strategic execution.
The challenge for us today is that we must come out with execution partnerships that will begin to execute without the government in pilot sizes that will show the example of what is possible to the government. When the government sees that one or two individuals can move the needle in 1 or 2 degrees, they will now know that their coming in is to boost what is already working and not submitting communiques of theories, strategies, and all we've been hearing hitherto.
As the conversation continues behind closed doors, the emphasis remains clear. Moving beyond rhetoric to practical homegrown solutions that can reposition Africa for sustainable growth and stronger participation in the global economy is non-negotiable. And that's it on Kakaaki Business. Good morning.
The gains of this high-level engagement are both immediate.
Thank you so much for staying with us on Kakaaki, the African Voice. And as you can see, my tag team partner for the day is here joining me now, Adora Sydney Jack. I haven't seen her in ages.
Went on your own, almost never-ending retreat, Mr. Kunle.
I had to take a vacation.
You look good for it.
I had to take a vacation, much needed.
Absolutely.
It's good to be back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. All right, let's bring you one of our special reports for the day, and we're looking at the digital space this morning. Nigeria's push towards a secure and resilient digital economy has taken center stage in Abuja as experts and stakeholders gather for a major cybersecurity event aimed at strengthening the nation's critical infrastructure. The event, which was themed building resilience, securing critical infrastructure, and leveraging artificial intelligence for a trusted digital economy, brings together cybersecurity professionals, security personnel, and delegates from 9 African countries are participating in that. So let's take a look at that report, and then we'll come back and talk.
The gains of this high-level engagement are both immediate and far-reaching. The exchange is strengthening regulatory capacity across participating countries by sharing real practical experiences. Nations at different stages of data protection development are gaining practical insights into building and enforcing effective privacy frameworks.
For African countries to see how we can cooperate, how we can have a kind of peer review. Some who just put in place their regulations, some who just set up their DPAs. They want to see what we are doing here, the impact we have made.
It is also advancing institutional development. Conversations around complaints handling, enforcement mechanisms, and operational systems, equipping regulators with the tools needed to move from policy to full implementation. As data increasingly flows across borders, collaboration among African regulators is key to ensuring trust, security, and accountability.
And trust is one of those key tenets of the single digital market for Africa. And we are here to facilitate the different countries that are our member states to build their capacity.
We're here to learn from their experiences on enforcement and implementation of their personal data protection laws.
The peer exchange is not just a meeting, it is a catalyst for a more secure and trusted digital ecosystem in Africa. Stakeholders are optimistic that the knowledge shared will translate into stronger institutions and better protection for citizens' data across the continent. Yoluke Ogundeli, EIT News Abuja.
But thank you for staying with us. Of course, when we're talking about Nigerian cybersecurity and protection of data in Nigeria, it brings me back to the cybersecurity, law and the act, protection of online conversations, and the policies that governs Nigeria and the sovereign African nation. It brings to my mind, what's happening in South Africa as well, and the issues concerning Nigerians in South Africa, and how we can also look at, emboldening conversations relating to foreign relations online, but guided properly. Because, Mr. Kunle, when you look at what's happening online, it also looks as if the conversations online and perhaps some of the inroads being made social media-wise are also festering these issues.
Well, it's true to a large extent that, a lot of things are done online these days, quite unlike 30, 40 years ago when you had to physically do stuff. But today, a lot happens online. And cybersecurity is something that everybody, whoever you are, must seriously consider now in terms of data protection, in terms of even national security. So these issues have come to the fore, and they cannot but be considered very vital, not just important, but vital, because even your national security, whether you are in Africa or you are in Europe or whatever your nation is located, is critical. These days, one hacker can just
absolutely
make havoc on the entire national security infrastructure of a nation if care is not taken. And that takes you to the area of fake news, misinformation, disinformation,
absolutely,
and hate speech. These are all interrelated, and it's important that Nigeria continues to forge ahead with events like this to properly prepare people for these situations, which, of course, if they're not properly taken care of, could be very deadly for the nation and for the economy.
So it just goes back to cybersecurity governance at the same time, and looking at our legal and perhaps policy framework, who does what, who coordinates what, who are the gatekeepers, and how do we ensure that what's out there is true.
Oh, sure.
And fact-finding. All right, let's take another special report. This time we're talking about Africa Data Protection Strategy. I mean, still around cybersecurity in a way, but as Africa's digital economy continues to gain space and expand, Nigeria is taking the lead in shaping how exactly citizens' data is protected on and offline. And the organization of a Data Protection Commission event, which was supported by the World Bank, the initiative brings together different stakeholders from across boards to sit together to convene and look at this issue and delegate from 9 African countries on data strategy for Africa. Let's take a look.
The 2026 Cyber Conference brings together some of the brightest minds in cybersecurity from across Africa and beyond. At the event, participants say the growing reliance on digital systems in sectors such as finance, energy, telecommunications, and public services has increased Nigeria's exposure to cyber threats, underscoring the urgent need for coordinated action.
We are in the era where AI is now being used for almost everything. So that is why we look at Nigeria, which is embracing digital economy, which means that we are going to be using technology, and technology can be exploited. So we discuss how we can put up strategies, procedures, standards, and tools to ensure we protect our technology.
Discussions are focused on strengthening the protection of critical infrastructure, improving cyber risk management, and exploring how artificial intelligence can be deployed to detect and respond to threats in real time.
The Inspector General of Police proposes the following strategic priorities. First, strengthening the protection of critical national infrastructure through robust cybersecurity frameworks. Regular review of the national cybersecurity policy and strategy.
The conference also highlighted the importance of collaboration between government and the private sector in building a resilient cybersecurity framework.
Data strategy talking about data in Nigeria. Well, it goes beyond just having, conversations with African countries. I think beyond that, convergence, I think one of the policy conversations to have is how does Africa protect its data firewalls, within the Committee of Nations. Because one thing I do know is that, yes, every country has its own sovereignty and perhaps its own policy direction. But when it comes to data strategy, I think one thing is clear. Data is fluid. And it pans beyond, continental borders online. Because what happens in Ghana can take, firework in Nigeria, just having a conversation online and also getting into the virality of people's, platform. But how does it also equate to production? How does it also equate to, outcomes for those countries within those kinds of convergence? And I think for me, beyond the talk shows that we usually see, we want to see what is the long-term, angle of these outcomes and how does it affect Nigerians in the larger space.
It's always important to be able to translate these things from the talk shops to the real situations out there on the streets, whether you are in Lusaka or you are in Nairobi or you are in Johannesburg or you are in Rabat in Morocco. Cybersecurity is a serious matter now. You're talking about firewalling. Every country has a responsibility to firewall its own cybersecurity infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Because, like I said earlier, while talking about the previous report, you cannot underestimate the capability of hackers to get into whatever system is available. Do you know how much money is lost in the banking system alone?
Absolutely.
In 1 year?
Absolutely.
Just from the activities of hackers, people who just get into the systems and move funds out of the banking system. It goes into billions, tens of billions of naira here in Nigeria alone. So, and this is something that the banking system is working seriously to battle. And it's not just in the banking industry, it's happening across the various sectors of the economy, not just in Nigeria, because just the same way you have kidnappers and armed robbers, you also have hackers who do the same stuff online, and you can hardly track them. So the best you can do is to ensure that as you work on your data protection, you ensure you firewall properly so that they cannot get into the depth of your data infrastructure.
I agree with you. I think for me, again, and I think for most Nigerians, because when we have conversations like this, one of the things that Nigeria could look at is also accurate data mapping, across different sectors, whether it's aquaculture, agriculture, economics, media, infrastructure, industry, because I think that when you look at policy framework and also looking at complementing strategy, data is important. And I think our data policy framework is something that we need to review and look at how we map the statistics, how accurate they are, and how they govern development for Nigeria.
Okay, I guess that lands squarely on the table of the Nigerian Data Protection Council, and I'm sure they're up to date. They're up to the task, rather.
I like that one better.
They're up to the task doing that. All right, let's peel away from that and bring you our social intervention segments for now. Don't forget, 7 a.m. will be time for the newspaper review.
And welcome to Get Fit in 60 Seconds with Jolly Phillips. Now, everyone has 60 seconds in every day to spare. So if you're ready, let's go! Hello, my alphas. Again, we're going to be working on the max today. We have 2 workouts. A tiger crunch, touch those ankles, yes, and send it out. Tiger crunch and a bird dog. Are we ready? Your time starts now. Come on, tiger crunch. At 30 seconds, we're going to move to the other side. All right? I will certainly let you know. Touch those ankles and extend. Make sure the hand that's supporting you is firm on the floor. How many seconds do we have left? We have 10 more seconds here. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. Good. 30 seconds. Switch. Ankle. Extend. Very good. Make your body as long as a pencil. You might be shaking all over the place. That's fine. Just stay with it. Stay the course. Come on. We're working abs here. We're working back here. We're working your core muscles. All those stability muscles in play. Keep going. We have 7 seconds left. Come on. That tick, tick, tick's coming. And time. Super job. Well done. Well done. I hope you had a great workout. Anyway, what I need you to do is to follow us on Instagram at Alpha Fitness Studios and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Alpha Fitness Studios, for free workout videos, free dance videos, sales and promos, and make sure you join us at the gym, Alpha Fitness Studios in Lekki Phase 1 next time you're in Lagos. So until the next time, bye-bye.
Hello, great people of Nigeria. Welcome to the Leadership Clinic. Today I'll be speaking on your morning, set your day. Personally, for many years, I've practiced the act of waking up very early in the morning after I've done my morning prayers, or the other elements of meditating. Guess what I do? I just move into my library and I begin to think about what my day is going to look like. So I begin to develop some positive mind attitude towards my day. And I say to myself, for that day, I'm going to succeed. Today is going to work for me. Whether I call it affirmation or your thoughts is actually building on certain things that you want to happen within the day. And then you want to be able to have a to-do list, as the case may be, and begin to prioritize the most important thing that you must do for that specific day. So how you start your day or your morning determines how your day will go. So show me somebody who is winning in life, and I will show you someone who has practiced the acts of actually setting the day with a great morning and actually prioritizing certain behaviors or attitudes that says today is a positive day. People who wake up and immediately start being in a bad mood, what they are welcoming is a full day of so many wrong things happening. So, but successful people do things differently. They take control of their morning before their morning takes control of them. There are 3 things that will change your life if you do them every morning. First, start with gratitude. The fact that you woke up from sleep is that gratitude. Thank you, Lord, that you made it happen for me. Before you check your phone, before you think about your problems, express gratitude from your heart for your health, for your opportunities. So this shifts your mindset from what is wrong to what is right. The second thing that you must do is to move your body. I'm not saying you need to run a marathon. Just 10 minutes, walk around your compound, do some push-ups. When you move your body, you wake up your mind and you feel more energetic and more focused. And the third thing that is very interesting is that you plan your day. Take 5 minutes to write down your top 3 priorities. What are the most important things that you must do today, you must accomplish today? When you start with a plan, you work with purpose instead of just reacting all day to whatever that comes your way. So that's why I normally will say every day that every leader that understands the power of utilizing the day can create the day. In fact, you can predict what happens to you that particular day based on how you have been able to prioritize the quality of your thinking, how you're able to prioritize the quality of your exercise, how you're able to prioritize the quality of your planning, and how you're able to prioritize the quality of your mindset. Creating a mindset that has a winning attitude is fundamental to a successful day. Great people of Nigeria, you must remember, if a man does not have a purpose waking up, sleeping becomes interesting.
Have you ever wondered how to get your child to eat? If you're worried your child's not eating enough, but his or her growth rate is on target, then your perception of how much he or she should be having may be a bit off. Serve age-appropriate portions. Give toddlers portions that are about 1/4 to 1/3 the size of your own portion. A toddler faced with both a plate full of food and a parent who expects him to eat it all may become fussy and finicky at the table. Offer new and unfamiliar foods in small portions and don't insist that your child must eat everything. Serve your child's old favorites, and do not use food as a reward or punishment. And finally, learn to be patient. Your child is most likely to overcome such habit as he or she grows older. Honestly, that's my 2 kobo.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates and exclusive content. Follow and participate in discussions on live TV studio programs to shape the narratives. Subscribe, engage, and share from AIT.live at AIT_online on X, AIT Online on Facebook, Official AIT Live on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads on YouTube. Stay connected with AIT on air, online, online.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. This month of May, the conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political
gives Tinubu soft landing with the screening requirements for president, and that's what you see there as the lead story, boldly.
This Nigeria talking politics, but in a different direction. Tension in Senate as Akpabio or Shomole clash over rule. And look at the writers there. Senate President, I'll send you out if you're unruly. Ex-Edo governor, you can only rule on an issue with our consent. Back and forth between both senators on the floor of the Senate. Details you'll find in the inside pages of This Nigeria this morning.
All right, Daily Global is looking at another interesting political story, this time from the PDP. It says, we regret giving Wike our platform. Makinde backed PDP slams FCT minister. We regret giving Wike our platform. Makinde backed PDP slams FCT minister. And that's how they lead this morning.
Okay, let's go to the Nigeria News Direct now. Don't expect quick fixes. New Power Minister Tegbe says. You'll find details of that on page 7 of the Nigerian News Direct.
And Vanguard this morning looks at worsening hardship. They look at insecurity, poverty pushing Nigerians to brink. NLC warns worsening hardship, insecurity, poverty pushing Nigerians to brink. NLC warns. Ford's finance minister's insistence on fuel subsidy removal. Presidency won't bring back fuel subsidy. Oyedele. And that's on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper.
On the front page of the Leadership newspaper, you have the top story. ACF crisis escalates as forum suspends BOT chair Dalhatu. The writers say ACF headquarters are still sealed off. No financial infractions at BOT level, says Dalhatu. You'll find details of that if you're interested on page 4 of the paper.
All right, let's go to Daily Asset this morning, and Daily is telling us that federal government unveiled $500 million research fund, sanctions honorary degree abuse, merit-based innovation drive targets $1 trillion economy, classifies honorary title misuse as academic fraud. NASU SANU suspend strike Monday, says officials, and that's on page 2 of the Daily Asset.
Okay, let's move on to the next paper now, which is the Daily Monitor. And the top headline there says, FG bans honorary degree holders from using doctor prefix. You have the writer says misrepresentation of honorary degrees will be treated as academic fraud. Approves $500 million annual research fund to drive innovation. If you look at the bottom of the page, you will see Wike, that's yes on Wike, the FCT minister responding to Makinde, that earlier
lead story.
The story you took
We
there.
regret.
It says PDP crisis, stop being fraudulent. Wike blasts Makinde to Raki others. And its own writer says there's a rival faction to open bank party account secretariat. FCT minister's comments and unsolicited display of political recklessness, says Makinde backed PDP.
Okay, let's look at The Guardian this morning. Interesting story there, away from politics and maybe hardship, but this is also tied to distress in the health sector. It says 85% public health centers in distress without doctors, despite 55.4 billion naira budget in 4 years. 85% public health centers in distress.
Actually, primary healthcare.
Primary healthcare centers in distress without doctors, despite 55.4 billion naira budget in 4 years, Mr. Kondele.
Yes, I think we need to look
Page
closely
6.
at what the graphics on the front
And the
page there
statistics,
says.
absolutely. It says that Nigeria's primary healthcare crisis is a system at the breaking point. So you have only 8,309 facilities right there. You also see that under that binoculars. And then also look at that where you have severe utility shortages. Only 51% have electricity, 38% lack access to water, 40% lack laboratory services, unable to provide essential diagnostic testing. System is expert site with local autonomy and poor state prioritization. That explains it all.
The primary health is screaming for help there on the front page of The Guardian. Let's go to the daily. On it. Am I sure is a paper? Yeah, it's today's paper actually. Yes,
it is. It's a rally session in Senate.
Yeah,
that's Akpabio Shomale. Yes.
Yes, we took that earlier.
It's today's paper. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So let's go to Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust is looking at meningitis kills 33 children in Sokoto, and that's how they run with that lead story. Sad there. Meningitis kills 33 children in Sokoto, and bottom page why Akpabio Shomale clashed over Senate rules, and that you would also find on the front page of the Daily Trust newspapers. And I think from there, we definitely are going to some of our talking points this morning. So let's begin with the APC grant screening waiver to Tinubu, says Nigeria happy with us. That's on Blueprint Authority and Nigeria. I just read Nigeria this morning. That's how we're leading. Lots of papers did say that as their lead, but Chooks, let me start with you. Granting of waiver, free pass, more to say.
Yes, it's. I think it's more like endorsement because it's even we have that practice in the parliament where once you serve at a particular level, you're nominated for ministerial appointment and you come to the floor of the Senate. What they tell you is say take a bow, and even if you're served as a member of the House of Assembly, it's called legislative privilege. So, and I think it's a huge lesson for other parties to learn, because now every incumbent all over the world, they enjoy what they call a head start, political head start, because even in the media, if you're an incumbent governor or president, you get media mention free of charge every day. No matter how much you hate the incumbent, you have to talk about him every day. Like there's no day you tune on your television set and global news, you not hear about Donald Trump. It's impossible. So whether you like him or not, you must talk about that. So it's not incumbent on those who seek to wrest power from Tinubu to actually put their houses in order and produce a common front to be able to challenge him, because as it were, several months ago we already knew that Tinubu was going to be the candidate of the APC, and even in terms of screening, they've asked him to take a bow and go, because it's more like if you want to screen him, it might suggest that there was something wrong with the initial screening. So what they said there, like we say in Nigeria, that they are resting on existing protocols. Very interesting.
There's actually no surprise here, given that about 2 years to the election, we had a lot of endorsements and all, and also given the fact that he's the sole candidate and he's an incumbent.
I think somebody said he would challenge him. Somebody said he would challenge him.
No, within APC as it is for now, nobody has bought the form. So he's the sole candidate and they're screening already. And he's within the rights of the party. It's not something illegal. And he has been screened before. So it's like an affirmation, and expectedly nothing has changed between the last screening and now. So it just seems to be like game on. The race is on. Like Chuk says, he already has a head start. It's for others to catch up. And sadly, following some of the headlines here, we don't seem to have anybody who is maybe right behind him yet. So hopefully by the time...
In the APC on the political space generally.
Right, there's no candidate, he's the only candidate practically that has emerged. And others are still battling with the internal crisis. Like Chuk said, we hope that they will be able to get people that are, because the beauty of democracy is choice. Variety. You have to decide, you have to weigh
different candidates, not a situation that everybody lines up behind one candidate.
Okay.
So we are hoping that the opposition will be able to bring candidates that can compete favorably. But it's not just that I'm an aspirant, I'm a candidate, but do you even stand a chance?
Okay, while we're waiting for the other political parties
Give us a
to get over their preoccupation with other matters and produce a candidate, let's go to the National Assembly. Chooks, you covered the National Assembly for quite a large chunk of your career. And the tension in the Senate over the rule amendment is something that a number of papers are talking about. Even the blueprint has it at the top of the masthead. Akpabio threatens to walk out Oshomole over Senate rule amendment. You have it also on the front page of this day. It's the top story on the front page of this day newspaper this morning. Tension in Senate as Akpabio Oshomole clash over rule.
Yes, this is not the first time it's happening. You know, I was also, I think Oshomole had benefited from the privilege of having been an ex-governor. That's why he wasn't walked out yesterday. When Pius was Senate President, if you recall, when a very powerful senator at the time called now deceased Arthur Nzeribe. You know, he was a very feared and highly respected, maybe not respected, but feared senator. What happened? The moment he suspended Akpabio. He suspended Atonzeribe. And, you know, that thing deeply worried Atonzeribe. Even the House of Reps, you remember people like Jibe Jibankole was the Speaker. He suspended now late Independence Ogunewe and Dino Melai and several other House members. And nothing, they went to court. And until that life of that House of Reps ended, they didn't return to the... You see, people sometimes make mistakes and say that it's primus inter pares, you know, first among equals. But you see, the moment you become Senate President, the gap between the Senate President and the Senator is like the gap between the Cape of Good Hope and the Strait of Gibraltar. That's the truth.
Oh, wow.
The moment you become, you know, a presiding, and not just Senate President, a presiding officer, you're no longer, because the rules are there, and he can exploit the rules. And, you know, like we were discussing backstage about the propriety or impropriety of these rules, you know, and sometimes how these rules backfire. But see, the most optimistic persons in Nigeria, I don't think any practicing politician suffers from high blood pressure because they're always optimistic. You see people who know that they have zero chance, they sell everything they have, they borrow money, and they contest, even party offices. You know, that said, it's not unusual for what Akpabio or what the present leadership of the Senate is doing is not unusual, and it's all about self-preservation. And everybody, even the so-called floor members of the Senate or National Assembly, they also will do same or even worse if they're in that position, because everybody wants to. I remember when David Mark was Senate President. You know, David Mark was Senate President during the time of the late Yaradua. And then when by the time Yaradua was from the north, David Mark was from the north too, you understand? So when, I remember very well that when Yaradua passed on and Jonathan became president, you know, there are those who felt that the zoning arrangement should change. You understand? But Jonathan, you know, stamped his feet and David Mark returned as senator. He was Senate President back to back for 8 years, if you recall. So it's not impossible that Akpabio, if you left for Akpabio and every other person in his shoes, they want to become Senate President for life. That's it, because the position is so powerful. You know, the perks of office are tremendous. You know, the chairman of the National Assembly, and you know, it's unique to Nigeria because we went to, after the collapse of the First Republic, and we're going to have the Second Republic, we went to America to copy the presidential system of government. Don't forget that we had the Westminster system before the 1966 coup. We went to America to copy the presidential system of government. But when the people who went to copy came back to Nigeria, they decided to create the office of the Senate President. Because you know the US, the Senate President of the US is the Vice President.
The Vice President, yes.
But they came here because the people who are actually the elected persons, who are actually the reps in America, you know, are the House of Reps. That's the Congress. You understand? But here, we now brought somebody and created the office of the Senate President. That has become the most powerful Senate President perhaps in the world. Because in the US, the Vice President doubles as the Senate President. But here, we trying to create an office, and that office is very powerful, if you ask me. It's a very, very powerful office. So, what do you think?
For me, it's just, like you say, self-preservation maybe, or selfishness playing out. But we cannot see the future. We are not Nostradamus. But I have a feeling that some of them might not even return, even with all this foundation they're laying.
But they don't
care. They don't care. They're optimistic, fine.
Yes.
But we're also looking at a situation, maybe there will be problem towards the proclamation of the 11th National Assembly. Because this rule is going to catch up with a lot of them, or the new National Assembly members, because we have governors also coming. And Grapevine has it that is targeted as a governor who already sees himself as the next Senate President.
And who might not be.
But you cannot even guarantee that even the governor that sees himself as the next Senate President is coming there. Because if we go by what happened in 2023, and it looks like it was going to happen in 2027, because a lot of disgruntled people who are the voters, who are not happy, who are complaining. If what happens, let's say, in the social media translates to the polling youth, the polling booths, then you know that more than half of them are not coming back. If they, I say if there's an if there.
The if is very big. Because most of the keypad warriors don't have the
hold on. In a situation where we have a free and fair election, that is another key word. Because if the votes will count, I don't think most of them there will come back, because a lot of people, if you take a sample of opinion on this NAS, more than half is not favorable, because we have a NAS that has become a rubber stamp, that any legislation that comes from the executive is as good as already passed. You have a situation where a law is passed and the same day it is signed into law. Where is it done? There is room for creating that space for different arms of government to look at it, except, like some people say, probably all of them wrote the law together. It's not just the National Assembly, so there's no need taking it back to them. So based on what has happened, the likelihood that some of them might not make it is very huge.
Very huge. All right. Well, somebody is probably echoing your thoughts, Chizoba. Tiana Sports 1062 says, please, whoever is feeding the president that Nigerians are happy is not telling him the truth. Another person here talks about, well, they say, who's scuttling the emergence of other candidates? Democracy is being mocked in Africa, and that's coming from Benwanze 8408. And others are also looking at, well, I'm not going to read that out.
No, but you see, for the sake of playing the devil's advocate, I have to also, somebody who has served in the executive arm and also who has covered the legislature. I want to also make this thing very clear. I've had the privilege of actually interacting with some federal lawmakers, and they're always very broke. They are always very broke. And I'll tell you why. And I don't envy lawmakers from the states contiguous to the FCT, states like Kogi, Niger, because your House of Reps member, when they had their quarters in Akpo, it was better for them. They could screen those coming into the estate. But now, you see, people just wake up in the morning, they go to a beer parlor joint, and they start a campaign of calumny against a rep or a senator, that we put him there, that I called him, he didn't pick his call. That I sent him a message that my son's school fees was due, and he didn't respond. You understand? And then I also had the pleasure of meeting one senator who headed I'm not naming the committee. It was a federal government agency. And he was not in good times, quote and unquote, with the CEO of that agency. You understand? And then he told me that he regretted not being in good terms with that CEO because, he left office, he was poor. He's poor, he's broke, he's penniless. So, you see, if you talk about, on the one hand, I spoke about how the system works in the Senate in America and how it's working here. There's nobody in America who wakes up in the morning and sends a message to his rep and say, my daughter's school fees is due. You understand? Or there's a launching, there's a program here. If you're married to a church for a harvest ceremony, and you donate 500,000, they'll call you stupid, foolish man. You know, you go to a mosque and you do the same thing. So that's the way it operates here. So to beat, they say the bird that has learned to fly without perching. You also, I mean, when he knows that the hunter will shoot without missing, you know, the bird also flies. This bird flies without perching. So if you actually, most of them are very are huge in debt. So they do everything possible. And then you see, there's no senator who doesn't have minimum of 100 CVs with him. There's no House of Representatives who doesn't have a minimum of 100 CVs, you know. So it is, if your constituents give you their CVs to help them get jobs, and you're able to, it's the number of jobs you get that determines if you are a good lawmaker, not the number of bills you pass, not the laws you make, you understand, not how much you impact on legislation. What you do is, if you're able to get jobs, you're able to empower. You call it empowerment. People have even lost sense of the meaning of legislature. You know, they say you have to empower your constituents. And how do you empower your constituents? You buy them buses, you buy them motorbikes, you understand?
Buy them tricycles, sewing machines.
In some cases, wheelbarrows, you know, and then
even shoemaking kits.
Yes, it's part of the empowerment.
But for me, I think they all go hand in hand. Whether empowering your people and making laws, because your primary responsibility is making laws. The other one is like protecting yourself. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, but it puts a lot of pressure on them.
But it's a tradition we started that it not goes to talk about corruption. It's a pressure, it's a culture we are feeding. Because
I think it goes beyond corruption. I think it also
it's expectation. I think it's expectation.
Not just expectation. It also goes to the level where it kind of indicts governance.
Fine.
Because if governance is as strong as it ought to be, and the poverty level is reduced, people will not be putting all of these bills on these legislators.
And I think I was chief press secretary in Anambra State. So when I went to another state, you know, at the time when I was chief press secretary,
I think we need to take other headlines because we're running quickly out of time. Somebody says each session of the National Assembly has the powers to change the Senate rules before electing presiding officers. So just so that we take note of that contribution. Now, and let's move to federal government unveils $500 million research fund, sanctions honorary degree abuse, daily asset, daily monitor, run with that as well. Another paper also talked about, the Vanguard says, insecurity, poverty pushing Nigerians to the brink, worsening hardship. But let's look at that story from the federal government unveiling $500 million.
And the doctorate.
Yes.
No, fantastic. I must, I've never met Alausa, the education minister, but you know, ever since he came on board, you know, a lot of positive a lot of innovations in field of our education sector. You know, he's been doing very, very well. And you know, like yesterday, when this issue of addressing people as doctor, those who have honorary degrees, you know, I chuckled because it's not just about, you know, it's about societal expectations. Because I remember there's a very top ranking editor I once called in early 2000. You know, I called him and said, Mister. He said, Doctor, I beg your pardon, Doctor. You know, so this is somebody who actually earned his PhD. You understand? You know, if you don't call him by name, you have instances in Nigeria where if you don't even call them, you know, you don't call the title in full. You know, you must Doctor, Professor, whatever, Chief. You know, you have to even
Right Honorable
Doctor, Sir. If you don't put that, Ambassador. It's also a popular expectation. If you call people Mister in Nigeria, they think, you know, there are something that is disrespect. Most likely, they will not. If the person is a boss in an office, you have to say Mister. You know, he wouldn't attend to you just for the sake of. When I was growing up, we had this cleaner in my mom's hospital, where my mom was a nurse and midwife. So each time my dad went there to actually pick up my mom or something, my dad would call him doctor. I wouldn't call his name now. But he was very happy. He would do everything. You know? He was the cleaner in the hospital. But if you call him doctor, even back then in the 70s. So it's something that we love titles here. That's the truth. We love titles.
A bloated sense of ego, someone would say, quantity over quality.
And I ministry
okay, sorry. Yes. Look at even professionals that do not prepare titles. You see, people call themselves engineers, architects, quantity surveyors,
farm.
If you don't address them as that. So me, when I introduce myself, I'm a journalist, tricks happen. Yes.
No, like I said, that's funny. Yes, actually it's fraudulent. Because you cannot go and procure. In my inbox, I have a lot of them asking you.
Pakan University, Lakan.
As little as 250,000.
You
get
get
this doctor because it's even less. And then you're proudly saying doctor. And somebody has to spend 6 years or more. Doctorate degree. And that's why some people now are fixed PhD. So you know that it was aimed. No, actually, I had a colleague that I thought was a doctorate until there was an altercation, and I thought because she prided herself.
You know what they call that? It's a doctor in brackets.
All right, we have to
and then another thing that we have to ambassador. Yeah, we have to also define
sorry to jump in here. Producers are on our next because our guest is.
Okay, we have quite a large number of comments this morning. Some of them are quite uncomplimentary.
It's expected.
We'll take a few and then look at. Maybe I should start from the women supporting women here. There's one here where I call it women supporting women because it's basically just about Adora this morning and
complimenting her.
Yes, this. Did I lose it? No, I couldn't have.
I didn't address it.
Yes, this person is saying, I don't want Adora to have to read it. So I'm taking my time to look at it. I'm taking my time to look for it. He says, what actually the person is saying is that his wife likes Adora a lot. She's the most beautiful presenter. Yes, I got it. Bumi Adeola 7280 says Adora, the most adorable woman on screen, said my beautiful and beloved wife that your body frame looks more beautiful. Sends her regards to you, Adora.
My body frame?
Yeah.
Women looking at my body frame.
Very telling.
Interesting, Mr. Kule. Well, thank you anyways. Thank you.
Well, there are several others now. It says, okay, I think you took this already, that whoever is feeding the president and Nigerians are happy is not telling him the truth. And Chooks, there's a warning from Bumi Adeola for you here. Say, Chooks, talk well this morning or else you have been failing people's hand for some time. All right.
Someone says Chooks is really impressing me today. What about the other days? And another person says, Chizoba, please ask your lawmakers, let your senators tell you how much they earn. Let them start by rejecting the jumbo pay. And I think that's from Emeka Keju, talking about, when you were talking about the senators in the National Assembly.
Okay, I think we should just spend the last 60 seconds of this looking at the headline of the Sun newspaper this morning. And that one says, Plateau bleeds again. We will be remiss not to talk about that before we go. Killing
I think
on the
Plateau has defied all solutions. Because I don't know what's wrong somewhere, but you see, as long as you do not bring people who have committed such crimes, to book, others too will be tempted to actually, throw the same path or, seek vengeance, because it's a question of killing and retaliations, killings and retaliations, and we know it's basically between the Fulani and the locals there. And it's all about control of resources. It's very sad because, these Fulanis have lived in the Plateau State for hundreds of years. And, like when Solomon, someone told me, when Solomon was governor of Plateau State, we have prominent Fulanis who were in the cabinet, who were his aides, and they didn't have these problems. So that's why I say a lot of people exploit, maybe because of the rising poverty. People kill at the least provocation. People take people's lives.
Personally, I don't think there's actually any excuse for this, because it looks like we are losing our humanity.
Yeah.
How can you kill mourners? If it's retaliation, they were killed, they are burying them, you're killing again. Like double attack. It's not retaliation. If it's the people that had finished mourning that went to attack, then we can talk about retaliation. It does not really add up. But the sooner this issue is resolved, the better, because it does not really speak well of us as a people. How can people be at a burial site and then they are being killed again? Yeah, it happens severally.
Even in Benue too.
Yes, it's disheartening.
Benue, particularly Benue and Plateau.
All right, we got to go now. There was something I would have liked us to talk about, but then another headline on the front page of the Sun that I would have liked us to talk about. But
is in the news
and because power is a major problem in Nigeria, and Enugu State is targeting 660 megawatts coal-fired power plant, and sets July groundbreaking dates.
That's you see, all over the world, even in Europe, coal is a major source of power. I don't know why Nigerian government decided to. And it's
Enugu is about to change that also, they tell us.
And Enugu is the home of coal in Nigeria.
Especially now that the new power minister is telling us not to expect any miracle.
No, the truth is this. You see, the truth is we're federal.
To be forewarned this to be.
We're federation. We're federation.
That's exactly where it is.
And Buhari, you see, like when I see some stories talking about.
We have to go, guys. There's just been a lot of conversation.
We just wanted to highlight that because it's important, because Nigeria is suffering from a serious energy crisis, and that will, in the course of the next few years, change a lot of things for Nigeria.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, and lady and gentlemen of the press. Chizoba Ogbeche, Deputy Editor of the Blueprint newspaper, and Chuksa Kuna, the Executive Director of the Authority newspaper, joining us this morning for the newspaper review.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're going into our first conversation this morning. We're focusing on the IG's call on men to improve on traditional information gathering by working with traditional leaders. Well, that's the call where we'll see some being killed in states. You know, we just had that source story. And of course, we have the security strategist and analyst, Dr. David Okororo, who is joining us virtually to do this in a moment.
Morning, Dr. Okororo. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, very well. Good morning.
Okay, good to see you. Now, the Inspector General has directed an audit of arms and ammunition across the Federation. And one wonders, what do you think could have contributed to the fact that before now there was no such move by previous Inspectors General?
Well, again, thank you this morning, AIT, for having me. You guys are looking gorgeous.
Thank you.
But having said that, this is perhaps one of the most significant decisions taken by any IG for a very long time. That is the decision to audit the stock of assets, weapons, and ammunition and the rest that is available to the police. Because I am sure if you ask any of the past IG, give me exactly the quantum of asset that you have, they don't know. So how do you go into security, keeping the safety of the people without knowing what exactly you have, where you have it, the state of those weapons? So I think this is very salutary and it's commendable that the IG have decided to do this. Now, there are several reasons. Number one is for the effective management of our internal security. So how, like I said, do you manage our crisis, national security crisis, when you do not even know what you have? And vis-a-vis the kind of problem that you have. So in fact, even in the terms of procurement of new strategic planning, you won't be able to do it because you do not have the vital information. So this will ensure that, yes, they have approximate, by the time this audit is out, they have the approximate quantum of resources that they have, and then they will be able to know how to deploy it. So you know what you have, you know where to deploy, because now nobody really knows what you have and where. So when there is a need, you don't know where to move materials from one place to the other. So it's very, very, very significant. Number two is it will also help them to know how much of the weapons that they have that are functional, are in functional state, a serviceable state. Hello?
Please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Okay. So you'll be able to know what quantum of arms and ammunition are serviceable and the ones that are not serviceable. Which ones need replacement? How many AK-47, AK-48, AK-49, any kind of weapons do they have? How much of what we call smoke, which other people might call tear gas, is available, and other so tactical and strategic equipment, how many of them do they have? So it is only when you have this knowledge that you can effectively even deploy, where there are crises. So it is very significant. And also you recall that it has been reported over and again that policemen, some unscrupulous policemen, would normally rent their arms, to criminal elements, including even bandits, like we have seen in Niger State and other places where policemen rent or give out or sell this equipment. So because they know that nobody's going to ask questions, but with an audit coming, I'm sure that a lot of the weapons will have to come back to the armory. And then you also now talk about the issue of knowing what is where. Like I said earlier, you say, Tukpo, for instance, the police division that is, Tukpo, somebody should be able to say, this is the number of rifles they have. This is the type. This is the number that is serviceable and that is not serviceable. Because you're asking, most of the time, we expect the police to do miracles, but we really are not, we don't know what kind of resource that is available to them. So it will shock you, perhaps, by the time the results begin to come out, that what we have on the ground to tackle the problem we have is a far cry. Okay. So it is very commendable, very commendable.
Okay, so I hear you, and I quite get the insight, because I know you've spoken about this severally on this program. One of our lead stories, the front page headline, says Plateau bleeds again. And I'm sure you're not surprised with that headline. Scores killed as gunmen attack mourners at mass burial site. Now, at Tuesday's meetings with his top officers, that's the IG, called on them to maintain regular engagement with traditional rulers and other top community stakeholders as a simple but practical means of intelligence gathering. When you see headlines like this, you're wondering, was there no SOS, pre-information, before these attacks? Why do you think they keep reoccurring time and time again, especially in very mass, where there are lots of people, either a burial or a church or commemoration? Why is it that difficult to map intelligence with the community?
No, see, I've said this over and again, that the problems we have here is not the lack of intelligence, because we keep putting it to intelligence. It's not. The problem we have is response, the response capacity and capability of the responsive agency, be it the military, be it the police. Recently from the various, even the kidnapping issues and all that information are usually provided, but it's the response. Either the response is coming late or it is not sufficient to be able to address the issues. So it is to address the response, because when you say intelligence gathering, what is intelligence gathering? Just to make sure you put you give to the security agency actionable intelligence. That means intelligence they can act on. So when those intelligence are provided, but the action is not adequate. So in the case of Plateau State and the rest, it's not intelligence, it's the capacity of government to be able to step forward and do the needful. But you keep asking yourself, these guys that are attacking Plateau, Benue and all that, they are not spirits. So they are not coming from the moon. They live in communities. They live around the environment. They come from somewhere. They commute through communities. After the operations, they go back to those communities. Those communities are not in Ghana. They are in Nigeria. So even if you say, they are not within Plateau, where are they coming from? They could be in Bauchi, they could be in Taraba, they could be in Nasarawa, but they are somewhere. They exist. They have camps. in this time and age, we shouldn't be talking with our hand dropping that we cannot do anything. We have an era of technology. So where men cannot reach, drones can reach there, my friend. Where men cannot reach, technology can reach there, my friend. So we cannot forever. Look, so for me, it's very painful. It grieves me to see Nigerians being slaughtered, or Nigerians that are in captivity of kidnappers being whipped, being flogged, and they are crying. And the photograph is viral all over the world. That we cannot protect our own citizens. Then we don't have a country that people are just killed. I then ask you, okay, people were at burial sites and they were attacked. Were there no law enforcement agents around that area? It is taking that they know that when people gather like that, they are supposed to have some form of security. So where were the security agents? So sometimes people say, okay, maybe the conspiracy theory that why is it that government is not doing that? Maybe there's an agenda or whatever. But it befuddles me and every other person who is in this sector that we are not able to deal with this issue, because there is not magic. These people live somewhere. They commute with vehicles. Right? They commute with vehicles. Now, what you can do in Plateau State, for instance, is to put drones in the air. I mean, put drones there that can monitor movement of people day and night. It's not rocket science. There are different satellite platforms that you can put to watch the movement of people. You can easily see suspicious movements, and then you can send ground forces or ground security agents to go and do what we call ground truthing, to go and find out what is actually happening here. So it's not acceptable that at this time and age we are still talking the things we are saying. I'm sorry, but it means that government is not succeeding. Government is failing its people. So for Plateau State, it shouldn't happen. It's not a matter of intelligence. It's the capacity of government to show the power to protect the citizen. It has nothing to do with intelligence. But having also said that, the relationship between the police officers on the ground and the community is very, very important. But we will still have to deal with the issue of trust. You know, there is a lot of trust deficit. So we need to deal with that. That's number one. Number two is what I said earlier. If we provided information today and the information was not used, we were attacked and decimated, and tomorrow we provide the same information and nothing happens. If you ask me to provide information next night to the police, I will tell you I don't want to waste my time. And that brings me, before we leave here, to this theory. I have always been a proponent of the theory of what we call community-centered security strategy, where you allow the community to defend themselves. We are not miracle workers. I know we don't have enough equipment or manpower to be able to defend the entire country. So what do? You have to put in place a framework that will allow communities and community leaders and the youth in their community to be the first line of defense, to protect their territory, to protect their community in case of crisis until the official security arrives. We cannot continue to grope in the dark and hope something will happen. God will come from heaven and help us. God have already helped us. We don't need to worry God anymore. So in order for us to be able to address these issues, we need to begin to allow, maybe starting from Plateau State, to even do a pilot of allowing security to bear a level of arm, a level of training, so that when there are intrusions by these criminals, the community will be the first to withstand them before the official security comes. I think that is the way to go. Otherwise, we will come back tomorrow, next year to talk about.
So how will the community withstand these attackers when they are not armed? In equal measures. No. How do you?
Yeah, that's the point I'm making, that in the framework that is going to be developed, you have to have arm for arm. You have to have a level of weaponry that the community can carry. Even if we are allowed, for instance, to say, okay, every community can carry a pump action rifle. Pump action rifle, different level of, there are different grades of pump action rifles, and you are allowed community to carry that. If you have 20, 30, 50 people in the community carrying that weapon, the criminal knows that if they come into that community, there will be some resistance. And that's number one. The community also understands the geography, the history, the social environment more than any intruder. So they can take advantage of their own geography, topography, the social and economic and the history of those areas to be able to withstand these people. But you're asking the community not to be armed. So this is the crisis. You say the community must not be armed. right? So they are prevented from bearing arms. If they bear arms, the official government action is to arrest them and detain them and jail them. But then you allow the criminals, the invaders, to come with sophisticated arms and decimate the community and kill the people. This is an unfair arrangement by any standard. So what I am saying, and a lot of people have said this, that the communities should, what we are afraid of? There are already arms and ammunition everywhere in the arm of criminals. So why are we afraid then to allow communities to bear the same arms to be able to defend and protect themselves until such a time that our security agencies have the capacity to protect people? So for me, the way forward is to have a framework that will allow people to bear arms, not military grade arms, but like I said, the kind of arm that the community can bear, and they will be trained. They will not use it to subvert government, because people are always afraid that, if you allow communities or individuals or groups to bear arms, they can subvert the country. But the arm we have already, they are using it to subvert government, and it is in the hands of non-state actors that are using it against the internal security of our country. So for me, what I would advise government is, let us start from play to state. Let us start by training people and making sure that those arms are under control. The police can oversee the arms to ensure that it doesn't get into the hand of the wrong people. But people must be allowed to bear arms to protect their community. We cannot be on this. Since 2018, we have been on this, that people should allow communities to bear arms. Government is dragging its feet, and hundreds and thousands of Nigerians are dying. Is it a fair practice by any government?
Dr. Okoro, very interesting talk there about people bearing arms. But my thinking, and it's a tiny bit of worry, which I hope can be quickly dealt with, is when you allow people to bear arms. We already have a large number of arms in the hands of non-state actors, like you said, but won't we be empowering people to engage in reprisal attacks if we allow communities to bear arms without proper control? My worry is, how do we ensure proper control? How do we ensure that the training is not just about how to use the arms, but the psychological and emotional training to ensure judicious use of those arms?
The policemen and the soldiers that are very armed, the difference between you and them is the training. If you are properly trained, even you, my brother, if you are properly trained, you can bear arms. So all you do is that you train them. There are different grades of weapons, so there are different protocols for training at different levels. So depending on the arms that you are going to allow them to bear, they will have some training, and then those arms will be regulated. The police in those communities will control, the DSS in those communities will control the use and deployment of those arms to be sure that, like we are talking of audit now, they will ensure that there is regular audit of the weapons to know where they are going to be deployed. And they are not going to be deployed in the air. There's going to be proper regimentations. It's not everybody that will bear the arm. There will be people that are selected. And by the way, in many of these communities, there are retired military people. They are retired DSS officers. They are retired policemen and women. If you don't want to give just to anybody, then look for these people that have been trained, that have sworn to allegiance to keep Nigeria, to protect this country. Look for them within those communities and constitute them into an armed squad that are ready at any time to defend their communities. The same thing for banditry. You see, this is a problem. The bandit come to your community knowing that you cannot do anything, and they stay there for as long as they go. How many bandits come to each community? Whereas every community, they are properly mobilized, they can protect and defend their territory. So the structure really will be, the first line of protection is the community. The next line of protection will be the official recognized security agencies, and then the third will be the military. So, but now, in most cases, you don't have the military in the very first line of defense. This does not work, and it will not work like this.
All right, let's look at the outright trailing the killing of an unarmed youth in Delta State by a police officer. Still in the air. I'm sure you've experienced conversations about that online day in, day out. Now, the measures taken to get justice for this dead man, most well hope that it will not be swept under the carpet. How satisfactory are some of the interventions that have been done so far by the police? Because the worry is for many that just a sack is not enough for taking a life. And even though we do not, advocate for jungle justice, what do you think can be done? Because a lot of people are saying that this is one death too many.
Well, it talks about this speaks to the discipline within the security sector. When men are not, in fact, one of the points I was going to make was earlier that the use and deployment of arms and ammunition by the police many times leads one wondering. I've been to places where a policeman will just take his rifle and shoot into the air as many bullets as possible for just no cause, right? So the use and deployment of weapons is very critical. The discipline to manage those things is very critical. So where did they get those weapons, those bullets from that they are expending? And is there that nobody is going to ever ask them, what did you do with the bullet? You took 20 bullets for an operation or for an assignment, and you came back with maybe nothing, and nobody ever asked that question. Again, that was one of the points I was going to raise earlier to comment the IG for this audit. But having said that, every security agency should be a disciplined force, should be a disciplined organization. But that discipline right now is lacking, and that is what you are seeing. But the action that the police authority have taken, I know they cannot sweep it under the carpet now because it's a matter that is in the public space. To say, one, they will do eternal trial for the policemen that are involved and dismiss them as it should be. And then, of course, they will be brought before the courts so that they can go and defend themselves before a judge. I think that's the procedure, because I know that there's no way police can completely prevent this kind of things from happening, but they have to be very firm and decisive action taken against those who are involved in this kind of atrocities, in order to show example and serve as deterrent to others that want to do the same. And this should be done swiftly, not that this matter is left for the next 3 years. No, there should be a decisive and swift action taken so that other policemen who bear arms, it's very tempting that you bear arms, you go like that because you feel you're on top of the world, so that everybody who bear arms will know that if you misuse them, there will be consequences, and the consequence could even be death by hanging.
Dr. Okoro, I've read a few comments online over the course of the last 1 week thereabout since the killing of that young man at Efuru. And one of the ones that struck me the most was somebody's call for a psych evaluation of Nigeria's policemen to get to know who's fit and proper to do that job. What are your thoughts?
Oh, but that's normal. Under normal circumstances, policemen are supposed to regularly undergo a psychological evaluation. Just the same way our drivers on the road, Nigerians. Every Nigerian need to take that. And the police people work under very strenuous and very difficult environment. Where they work, where they live, and all that are very.
Is there a reason for accidental discharge at any point?
Okay, so if you do a bit of what you call this intelligence studies, emotional intelligence, you will know the difficulty. A policeman is standing under the rain and under the sun. It is a hard situation. He's feeling heat and he's wearing all those gadgets and all that. And then people who do not, perhaps his children are out of school because they can't pay school fees, they're difficult to eat and all that. So psychologically, his intention, and then you give him arms, and he can easily be tipped to the other side. So that's why we will need to evaluate them, and also to ensure the welfare of these people. They are bearing arm, and it's very dangerous. And before you give somebody arm, you must make sure that his mindset is right. He's in a stable mind. But you don't do that, and all sorts of people. And then, of course, the use of drugs.
Absolutely, I was going to come to that. Substance abuse.
Yes, substance abuse. They use all that. So there are other influences. But like I said, it's a huge kind of situation. It's not just to grab that guy and hang him. That won't solve the problem, because tomorrow another policeman will do that. So we need closer control. The DPOs and all those who are in charge will have to take responsibility on how their men bear arms, and then the psychological state of every man. And I know that the police has its own psychologist. It also would be good to have this kind of evaluation every 3 months to be sure that people who bear arms, not everybody in the police bear arms, but that those who bear arms are in the right state of mind to bear arms. That's what is done all over the world. You don't just give arms and ammunition to anybody to say go and stay on the road or walk around. There are that aspect, like you say, of the psychological evaluation before people are allowed to bear arms. And I think the police need to do that quickly. Not only the police, the military also need to do that. Because we are beginning to see these reactions of some military boys also, that it does not conform with societal expectation of forces like this.
All right, Dr. Okoro, how would you evaluate the criticism that has come from Nigerians of the Nigeria Police Force? Because when you actually listen to the Inspector General, Olatunji Disu, reeling out some of the recent successes of the police, including the recovery of over 1,200 arms and ammunition and the rescue of 189 kidnapped victims during several intelligence-led operations within the month of April alone, making Nigerians understand that the police are not actually sleeping. So the criticism that the police has attracted, or that people have hurled at the police, let me not say they attracted it, that people have hurled at the police. How fair do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a matter of managing expectation. Nigerians expect so much from their police that if anything happens, the police will be there, either to prevent or to respond. And so when the police is incapable or do not respond where and when the people expect, there will always be criticism, because there is a lot of expectation of the Nigerian police because of the constitutional responsibility of the resources that they are disposal and all that. So Nigerians that are complaining have a right to complain, but they will also need to understand that the police are operating within the constraints of the resources that the Nigerian society is making available to the police, because the police need much more resources to be able to protect every Nigerian. Many countries, you have a police force of 1 million men, right? They have the arms, they have the platforms, they have the technology, and so they're able to respond swiftly. I will see them, in America, they say, in South Africa, and all that. Everybody have their own level of crimes. But what the government in these countries do is to ensure that the police itself, because without the foundation of every society is security. So without security, we can't go around. Like now, people can't travel, people can't do business. So like I said, every Nigerian therefore need to stand up for the police to say, look, let's give them more resources. Let's provide more equipment. Let's provide more funding. But when the funding is provided, that's another thing. You provide the funding for police, it's stolen. Like any other government agency, most of it is stolen. So it's never used for the purpose. So Nigerians should be able to fight for the police, to say, it's for my own security that the police, for my own good that the policeman and the military man are well equipped. But when the funding is provided, we should also take the responsibility of following it to be sure that it is spent for the purpose for which it was provided. So Nigerians have a right to criticize, but they should also know they have a responsibility to support their police through putting pressure on government and even donating, contributing to ensuring that the police in their community are properly equipped and that they have the right to which to work.
All right, Dr. Okoro, we're going to have to leave it at that this morning. Thank you so much for talking to us this Thursday, looking at the Inspector General's Weapons Control Directive. Dr. David Okoro, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure always. Thank you very much.
All right, it's that time that we go, of course, for Kakaaki socials, and Ren Nobozege will be coming just shortly after this break. Stay with us.
The stories now break online. Don't miss anything from our real-time updates, exclusive content, and participate in the TV to shape the narrative. Insta. Stay connected with AIT on air, online.
Get ready for a bold new chapter in political discourse. This month of May, the conversations that matter most are stepping into the spotlight like never before. Political and expert guests as they tackle the issues that define our democracy. No filters, no distractions, just real talk. Political platform now on AIT, 9 to 10 a.m. every weekday. Premieres May 4th, 2026. Stay informed, stay engaged, be part of the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you and welcome to Kakaaki Social. I am Onoshorena Obozige. We'll begin from Plateau State this morning, where the State Police Command has confirmed a deadly attack by yet to be confirmed and identified gunmen on Idig Susut community in Fan district of Barikin Ladi local government area of the state. The incident occurred late Tuesday night and left 5 persons dead, including 4 women and a 9-year-old boy. 3 other female victims sustained injuries and are currently receiving treatment at the General Hospital, where the bodies of the deceased have been deposited. Well, it was supposed to be a mass burial for Christians killed by terrorists, but while victims, families and community were mourning their loved ones who died, getting ready to bid them farewell forever, same terrorists struck again at the burial ground.
Gunfire, gunfire, gunfire. Hey, don't panic, take cover. You are my sailor. You are my sailor. I tell you about walking on. You get out to the way I kitchen and tell you. I tell you the Lord. I tell you.
Well, how sad right there. Let's take your reactions to this coming from ex-DJ Sport Key. Says 6 people killed in Plateau State last night, 20 miles south of Jos. 5 people from the same region were buried earlier that same day from a related attack. Same day, same region, 2 massacres. This is not a crisis anymore. This is a routine. And APC government treats it like it doesn't matter, as they are only interested in their plan to rig 2027 election. The blood of these people is on the hands of every leader who has collected security votes and delivered nothing but silence. Another reaction, Ishaku Samaila says, they killed us. To now bury the dead is a problem. How do you want us to now accept that we have a government? And final thought to this one coming from Plateau, Asian girl, it says it was just weeks ago that the military went around arresting and disarming the youth of that community for fighting off the Fulani terrorists. I posted it here. I mean, it's so sad. Your loved ones just died like that. You want to bury them and the next thing you are killed. How sad. Well, away from that, we come to Abuja now, where human rights activist Omoyele Sowore on Wednesday led a protest at the Abuja office of MTN Nigeria over allegations of exploitation and poor service delivery to subscribers. Sowore alleged that Nigerians were being unfairly exploited through rising telecom charges, warning that the protest could spread nationwide if concerns raised by subscribers remain unresolved.
And I remember in Nigeria with $50, you cannot buy for 3 days. I pay 55,000 naira to buy monthly data. It finishes in 2 days. If somebody pays for 1 day data, you should be able to browse for 1 day. If you pay for 1 month, you must be able to browse for 1 month. Here, you must work for here.
All right, let's cross over to the space of social media and see how you're reacting. Ibadan phone plug attached to this from yesterday, and it says the message from MTN telling him or her that your data usage for 17th of April 2026 is 24 gig. To stop this notification, the usual message that I think we all get. And he says MTN deducted 24 gig from my data bundle daily for 3 days in a row for using only WhatsApp and Twitter on my phone. These guys are robbing Nigerians. Also, in reaction to this is Levia. He says, what exactly are their demands from MTN? Also, hope they know that currently MTN has the best network in Nigeria. If they go, who are we left with? Airtel, Glow, Night Mobile, those networks. More thought to this. Christy, mother of many generations, says it's so sad that many people online are acting nonchalant over this, as if they are not also affected. I was expecting many to also tweet massively about this. I have been following Shaware on this, and honestly, we need more voices. Some more reactions to this. Guy and Githig says some South Africans want to get rid of Nigeria's aliens, drug dealers, rebels, and child traffickers who don't contribute anything to South Africa. Why Nigerians' response is to get rid of South African companies that pay tax and employ Nigerians. Make this make sense? To me, he is concerned. Bleed says, in addition, data shouldn't be expiring for any reason. Once you buy data, you should be allowed to use it as long as you want to, not having to worry about the expiration. And low-key concerns are also there that hope this is not retaliatory of the xenophobic attack that we're facing over there in South Africa. Well, away from that, the Senate has confirmed the nomination of Joseph Tegbe as Minister of Power, with the minister-designate pledging to tackle Nigeria's recurring grid collapses within his first 3 months in office. Speaking during his screening, he said urgent reforms are needed to stabilize the national grid and improve electricity supply across the country.
When it's working, we will get there. Because we are going to have a disciplined approach to addressing this. I'll come and present to you what our plan is. We clear milestones. If you don't see this in 3 months, it means you won't see 6 months. So you must see the 3 months, and you must hold those accountable for it. Put those things together in the next 1 or 2 weeks, we'll come to you and present them to you. So we will put a stop to that leakage, to that bleeding, and all the challenges that we have.
Well, it sounds like a good place to say amen, but not to overdo it. Let me take your reactions. Abubakar Ojima on Facebook, responding to AIT who had shared that video, says, talk small, oh. Make you sit down first, oh. That place no be ordinary, oh. And he's laughing, adding a lot of laugh emoji. Also, Tajuddin Sadiq, he says, I like the energy with which this minister is speaking. It appears he has something upstairs. Nigerians want to see practical and visible results on or before December 2026. So may God shower you with wisdom, Baba. Amen. Olujide Olushola says he is already setting himself up for failure. The revered chief, Bola Ige, said within 6 months under Obasanjo, successive ministers after him, including Fashola, who famously said it was not a rocket science, failed. The Ajunos in the power sector are waiting for you. And yes, for Kingsley, he says, first of all, what's his portfolio? Does he have any degree in electricals, engineering, or any related field? Has he worked in any electrical company before? Or he was given the appointment as compensation? Ahmad Olayinka says, by August, we will get back to this post. We wish you the best, honorable minister. And definitely that's the best, but nothing but the best that we all wish you. And yes, I learned that he spent 35 years being in public service really, and for that 35 years he served as fiscal and economic reform expert for the over 35 years of experience spanning the public and private sectors. He's been leading partnership, as I read about him. But away from him now, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike has dared the Turaki-led faction of the PDP to provide a bank account number for sales of expression of interest and nomination forms for their aspirant. Wike promised to shut down any bank that allows the faction operate it, as well as seal off any building that houses the headquarters. He was speaking at his monthly media chat on Wednesday, and he responded also to the viral plea of Pastor Sarah Omaku of the Family Worship Center, who had knelt and pleaded with the minister that the minister has to leave Jabi Lake in Abuja as a recreational center. But he says he's not given to the emotion. So we will take his threat on the Turaki-led faction first. We come back and have Pastor Sarah Omaku and then his response.
For you to open an account, you must have to have the certificate of incorporation. You must have the certificate of incorporation. Who has it? It's the secretary of the party. So let me say the bank that will go and open an account. That bank will be in trouble. Then the person who wants to open the account and pray law, that Turaki, a senior advocate, he puts his name as signatory. See whether he will not be derobed or whether that thing he will not answer sick. He will not. And two, any house that allows them, because it's fraud. You know the judgment. You know what's on there. And I see it. I will take that house. I will seal it up. It is gone. I will never allow any breach of the peace. You cannot. You cannot, because I'm here to maintain peace. Apart from being a PDP member, I obey. This is the judgment of God. You must obey it.
All right, let's now see that viral video from last weekend and then his response to that.
Not fight the minister of the FCT. I cannot. But I go on my knees as a mother in this land that Jabi Lake Recreation Center should not be given to anybody. That is where people go for exercises. That is where people sell. That is where people meet and hobnob and get married. That is where people go to watch games. That is where young people go to. I beg you, Mr. Minister, in the name of God, as a mother, to not sell that land to anybody.
It's not about the woman dealing that begging. I will not carried away by such emotion. Dealing them to do what? Who owns Jabi Lake? How does it become their own? When you go there, you see shanties. They told me to shanty. And one of these days, I went there and I said, this cannot be. But the hotel. And then, who will come to stay in that hotel? When there are shanties, or I don't know whether they are criminals or what.
All right, let's see what you make of this, but that's the minister's response right there. 7 says, this man is the most emotionally dead person I know. Well, every politician is or has to be, because if your conscience is still alive, I don't think you will survive as a politician in Nigeria. That's why Goodluck Ebele Jonathan bowed out. Also in reaction, Perfedi in robes says, now talking politics and his threats to closing the house, whoever gives headquarters to PDP and then the banks as well. Perfedi says he keeps talking about law and its enforcement, but when it goes against him, he forgets about the law and its enforcement. Who gave him the right to seal a bank or a house? He thinks he's a god. I laugh in Swahili. Soon, he will become ordinary citizen and we will see how it will be. More thought to this. Black man says, can anyone open a corporate bank account without CAC? Why should any bank do that in defiance of the law? Those are what Wike meant. If anyone disobeyed the law, then he or she, it should be punished. Storyman says this is an open threat by a serving minister to use state power to block an opposition party from carrying out basic political activities when public office is used to intimidate banks and private property owners over internal party matters. It raises serious questions about the rule of law and the shrinking space for opposition politics in Nigeria. Storyman talking there. And to our final story for today, proceedings in the Senate turned tense following a sharp disagreement between President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, and Senator Adams Oshomole of Edo North over the newly amended eligibility rule for the Senate presidency. The brief calm in the chamber was disrupted as Akpabio commenced the reading of votes and proceedings from Tuesday's sitting, which Senator Adams Oshomole believes did not accurately reflect what had been agreed upon during amendment to Senate President position eligibility. Well, midway into the process, the Edo North senator raised a point of order, prompting the president of the Senate to immediately remind him that under the Senate Standing Orders 2023 as amended, points of order are not entertained during the consideration of vote and proceedings. But later, they made up, and the Senate president told him, I love you so much. But despite the caution, Oshomole insisted on being heard, leading Akpabio to call on former Chief Whip Senator Oji Uzokalu to clarify the rules.
Mr. President, point of order.
People have been in these state chambers for 3 years now. We should begin to know the rules of the Senate. I don't want to be accused of executive arrogance. That's why I keep tolerating these things. Please, there's no new senator any longer.
All right, let's cross over to AIT Online on Facebook. Reacting is Kazim Umaru. He says, if na Natasha, suspension straight. Amu Jonah says, they know it, that Oshomole is the next Senate president. They will fight Oshomole in vain. Finally, Chidu says, just imagine talking about the Senate president when the election has not been done. These people have already written results and are waiting for 4 a.m. on the election day to announce results. Well, as I mentioned, they made up, and the president of the Senate was clear on how much he loves the Edo North senator. Everyone, that's the much time we'll have lost this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Rena Obio, and we are AIT_online everywhere on social media. You can always tag me to the stories that matter to you. I'll see you again tomorrow.
We see. For markets, every day gets your own wahala. Sometimes people go on scam you. But Baba